So thank you for the lovely introduction there, Courtney. Again, my name is Michelle, and today I'm going to be discussing how we can support aging in place and navigating this process. So here are the bullet points, a little bit of an overview for what I'm going to be touching on today. For starters, I'm going to give a little bit of a background of who I am and what I do. Then I'll get into the nitty-gritty of what exactly is aging in place or aging in the right place, and why a lot of older adults have this goal to age in place. We're also going to be looking at some examples as well as barriers to aging in place. And then finally, we're going to talk a bit about how to create a plan to age in place and what steps to follow. So again, like Courtney mentioned, my name is Michelle. I'm very excited to be here today. I'm very passionate about talking about the things that help successful aging and sharing resources for how to age successfully.
Michelle, the presentation isn't forwarding.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, so this is just what we missed, the little bullet points here. My hello slide. Okay, and then my little introduction here. So a little bit about what I do and why I do it. So we already touched on kind of my credentials and how I'm passionate about building those age-friendly and dementia-friendly communities, but specifically breaking the stigmas around mental health and the aging process. So I've worked a lot in retirement, long-term care, and the nonprofit sector, specifically in the social and mental health areas. So providing those programs and services that get people connected, like recreational programming and whatnot. Okay, so a little bit about my business. It just recently started in 2023, and the goal here is to bridge the gaps between older adults and service providers so that they can experience those seamless transitions when going from one stage of life to the next. We provide holistic health services to assist older adults in managing their home, decluttering, coping with grief and loss, maintaining and improving their mobility to support aging in the right place. So the first step in this process is addressing the areas of concern through a holistic lens. So I always like to refer back to this, when considering what an individual is going through. So this holistic lens includes the 8 dimensions of wellness, such as emotional, environmental, financial, intellectual, vocational or occupational, physical, social, and spiritual. The next step from here, after looking at the person from this holistic lens, is figuring out a plan so that they can live optimally and successfully as they age. So these steps are backed by our mission, vision, and goals. So our mission is to ease the aging process by supporting older adults and their care partners through major life transitions, such as loss, grief, and change, through quality care, connection, and compassion. Our vision is to integrate a love for aging in a growing society that resists it by empowering older adults and their care partners to work together, set goals, and make those changes. Okay, so that's my little bit of a background to who I am and what I do. Now let's get into aging in place. What is it exactly? And we'll take some time to reflect on our own personal goals. So, as mentioned previously, many older adults have the goal of staying in their own homes as they age, but sometimes it's not that simple. So how can we support this goal individually and collectively? Okay, so first and foremost, what is aging in place? It's more than simply remaining in your home as you age. It means having the health and social supports and services you need to live safely and independently in your home or your community for as long as you wish and are able. And this comes right from the Government of Canada website, that definition there. So many older adults associate aging in place with positive attributes, such as maintaining one's autonomy and independence in a community that offers social connections and access to services. So I want to take a moment to reflect on what the meaning of home means to us. So for me, maybe for most of us here as well, a home is more than just a place where individuals eat, sleep, and are sheltered. A home is where one can attain that sense of safety, security, and belonging. A home is that stepping stone that connects people to larger communities, their neighbors, those services. The home may require several changes alongside any physiological transitions or physical transitions that an individual experiences as they age. And the home must accommodate one's changing needs and values accordingly. So with the increasing aging population, we're also seeing an increasing demand for affordable housing. We talk about this a little bit through the GRCOA and affordable housing and everything. And especially housing that is accessible and senior friendly. So locals over 65 years and older represent the largest age group in Brantford. I think these statistics kind of spread outward as well to Ontario, Canada, even globally in some cases. And we know that it can be quite costly to live in a retirement residence. And depending on your needs and eligibility, you may end up waiting a long time or not even be eligible for long-term care. Okay, so a little fun fact here. According to the results of the 2016 Canadian census, so a little while ago, maybe this number's changed a bit, but I thought it was quite significant. Over 85% of aging seniors would prefer to age in place in their homes and communities. They would like to keep living at home and pay for supports as needed, rather than living in an assisted living facility. So some kind of community or space that provides, supports, whether it's cooking meals or housekeeping, for example.
Excuse me, Michelle, the slide you're showing is blank.
Oh. Do you see the yellow slide now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so many older adults are more likely to live alone than younger adults. So solo dwellers represent 42% of all people aged 65 and older in private households. So this can present as an issue for safety as well. Okay, so now this is a little reflection point. You're more than welcome to grab a piece of paper or, just sit kind of in silence with yourself and consider if you share the same goals as many other Canadians to age in place. And does place really matter? So, the physical location where you're living. And consider for a moment what is most important to you as you age. Is it health, family, finances, for example? So there's no right or wrong answer here. Every person is different in the way they prioritize their dimensions of health. So we'll touch on this a little bit further later on in the presentation. Okay, so now we're getting into our next kind of bullet point here. So life happens. While we may have goals and expectations on how we age and what these stages of life may look like, we need to readjust depending on life circumstances. So I want to touch a little bit on the social determinants of health. As we kind of mentioned earlier, there's some things that are outside of our control. So we know that our health and well-being is not only determined by our lifestyle choices or our behavior, but more predominantly these social determinants of health. So these include, and are ever evolving, income and social protection, education, unemployment and job insecurity, working life conditions, food insecurity, housing, basic amenities and the environment, even early childhood development, social inclusion and non-discrimination, and more. So I found those last two quite interesting as well. So in some of my digging, I found that there is evident overlap between these social determinants of health and the factors that influence an individual's ability to age in place. The main barriers to aging in place are accessibility to quality services, affordable housing, transportation, and social supports. I also think that it's important to touch on falls, especially under the umbrella of, life happens. There are certain circumstances that come up, and I find sometimes people turn a blind eye and say, I'm not there. I'm not going to consider that yet. I'm not at that point in my life. However, falls, while totally preventable, can happen and can happen unexpectedly. So falls are the leading cause of injury among older Canadians, where 20 to 30% of seniors experience at least one fall each year. Half of all these falls cause hospitalization, or half of these falls that cause hospitalization happen at home. This could be due to poor lighting, or maybe some tripping hazards in the home. Maybe it's due to existing mobility issues or side effects from medications, for example, or a lack of mobility devices like cane, walker, wheelchair. Falls may not seem too bad at first, but as we age, they can become especially dangerous and can prevent individuals from being able to age in place. But like I mentioned, the good news is that they are preventable, and there are things you can do and steps you can take to reduce your risk of falls. So we'll talk about this a little bit more later on in the presentation. So as we move forward, I want you to also reflect on how many people don't have the privilege of aging in place. And remember, aging in place is more than just remaining in your own home. It's about safety and independence in a place where you feel that sense of belonging. And when reflecting on the social determinants of health and whatnot, we may not be able to control our past, our upbringing, our past choices, for example, and we can't change the facts of our current states, such as our current health issues that we might face or financial standing, but we can decide how we will move forward to support these goals in the best ways that we can as individuals. Okay, so now getting into the next piece of the presentation, creating a plan. So here we have lots of examples and tips, so feel free to jot any down, but there will be a little resource paper distributed as well. So when we get clear on these goals for aging in place and we give ourselves graces for the privileges we may or may not have, we can take things one step at a time. It's good to create a plan, but how do we get there? So let's outline those steps to help you along the way. Okay, so step one, I always like to just start with reflecting on where you are in your journey. So be honest with yourself. Is this something that you can put off implementing for a few more weeks, a few more months? Or is it something that maybe you should have started to consider a little while ago? But the truth is, it's never too early to start thinking about your future or planning for your future, even if it's those small steps. But remember that things can always change. It can be very difficult to find yourself in a moment of crisis and need to make those very large decisions. So this is something that I like to harp on. You don't want to be in that point, maybe health changes or loss of those social supports and needing to make, a big life decision. So it's always good to consider beforehand. So I want to provide an example here. So Lois and Ben are in their 90s and have lived independently in their family home for decades. They have minor health problems, but find it difficult to maintain their home on a regular basis. They consider the costs of hiring meal prep and housekeeping services compared to moving into a retirement residence. They decide that they will downsize their home to a seniors-friendly apartment and hire services as needed. It is a long process, so they reach out to their family and friends, financial advisors, and care providers for support. So this is just an example of how they're kind of reflecting on where they're at, planning for the future, and reaching out to those supports so the process is as smooth as it can be as they move forward. Okay, so a little tip here, as you go through these steps, remember to be realistic and easy on yourself. We can set these high expectations on ourselves when we have a goal in mind. So remember to give yourself that little reality check. Life doesn't always work out the way we want it to, and that's okay. We may just need to readjust along the way. You never know if there's something better out there waiting for you. So keep an open mind as you move through the process. Okay, step 2. So start with the basics. What is your health like and what might be some areas of concerns? For example, you can reflect on your family history and what you can do now to ensure a healthy future. So some of those lifestyle or behavioral choices. Taking notes on your current level of physical activity, your diet, your sleep, lifestyle choices such as drinking or smoking. Do you need external supports to maintain your health? For example, do you frequent the doctor or have a nurse coming in on a regular basis? Create a list of the different service providers in your area that may be able to provide the health care that you require. So another example here. Betty was recently diagnosed with diabetes. She's received some supports from her doctor, but also decided to join a local peer support group to share resources and information with one another. They chat about different exercise and meal routines that work well for them, as well as medications that they've been recommended by their doctor. They encourage each other to advocate for their health among their healthcare providers. Okay, step 3. So assess the current disadvantages and advantages of your living situation, your current living situation. Do you plan to live there when you are 70 or 80 years of age or older? Do you own or rent your home? If you rent, your ability to make changes to your home to support your needs may be limited. Consider what you can do to age in place as a renter versus as a homeowner. What changes can you practically and even legally make to your home to help you age in place? So if you rent, for example, you might need to go over this with your landlord. So some of these changes can include maybe widening doorways, like changing the trim around your doorways to allow easy access for walkers or wheelchairs. Or maybe you consider installing a chairlift or some kind of elevator. Maybe you need those grab bars, for example. Although you might not need to invest in these changes right now, depending on where you are, they may be a lengthy process that you don't want to deal with during those times of high stress. So, for example, if you're dealing with a health crisis, maybe you've had a fall or the death of a spouse, for example, it's so horrible to experience those things. And on top of it, have to figure out the logistics of your home. So when really you should be focusing on, your own health, for example. So like we mentioned earlier, half of all falls happen in the home, and this can be especially risky if you are living alone. Do some research to find out about different organizations that offer subsidies and grants for things like chairlifts or those grab bars, for example, or other supports that may reduce your risk of falls. So you never know if you or a friend might benefit from having this information readily available. Furthermore, if you have concerns around finances or safety regarding living alone, you may benefit from different programs like Canada's Home Share programs, which is an intergenerational housing solution. They work to match older adult home providers with students and other older adults to create mutually beneficial living solutions. Home Share aims to support aging in place to older adults while providing safe and affordable housing solutions for post-secondary students and older adults. Individual cities plan to implement similar projects to support seniors aging in place and combat those high costs of living. Additionally, if you own your home, there are other benefits available through the government. So I think those are I think I might have it on another slide, but there's the homeowners senior safety tax credit, for example. Okay, so here's my case scenario, my example. Mary and Steve live by themselves in their own home. One day, Steve has a fall, which has resulted in a broken hip. He'll be staying at the hospital for a while, but upon his return, he'll be using a wheelchair and walker for a few months. The home is a raised bungalow, which causes some issues for getting in and out, as there's stairs up to the entrance, for example. While Steve is in the hospital, Mary compares pricing for installing a ramp and a chairlift for their entranceway, since the doctors told her they can anticipate some future issues with Steve's hip. So here's another tip. If your current home would need a lot of changes or maintenance to support your needs as you age, you may want to consider downsizing to a more accessible home before you find yourself in a position potentially of desperation or crisis. I know the VON has an at-home program where eligible individuals may receive subsidies or subsidized installations of things like grab bars. So again, add to that list of resources that you may need down the line. Okay, step 4. As mentioned, transportation may pose as a barrier to aging in place. Most older adults will live 7 to 10 years past their ability to drive safely. Think about the types of transportation you use now. Do you plan to continue to travel in the same way when you're older? Being able to get to appointments, shopping, or other recreational activities is an important part of being as independent as possible. For many people, this involves driving. Planning for independence includes thinking about what to do when you're ready to or must retire from driving. It is important to consider how you'll get around if you're no longer able to drive. And it's also important to start thinking about different transportation options available in your community, such as public transit, taxis, low-cost transportation services, or family and friends even. If you're currently or plan on taking public transportation, you may be eligible for another benefit, which is the Seniors Public Transit Tax Credit. Here's another example. Reggie decided to stop driving when he began experiencing issues with his eyes, but he still finds great joy going to the grocery store independently. He applied for the Brantford Lyft eligibility and application and now schedules weekly rides. So some cities have subsidies for seniors' transportations. Like I mentioned, that tax, that credit. It's a good idea to learn about these services even before you need them and learn about what the eligibility criteria is and the process, how long it might take, those sorts of things. Okay, step 5. This is one of my favorite topics. Your community and social supports play an important role in your health and ability to age in place. The ability to draw on social networks of friends or family is known to make an important contribution to general well-being and overall quality of life. Living in a post-pandemic world, we've come to realize how social isolation really does impact not only our social health, but also our mental and even physical health as well. So having those strong ties to others can help combat loneliness and limit stress. Volunteering in particular helps to keep people connected with their community and is associated with longevity and increases in happiness and satisfaction in older age. And it doesn't have to be anything too strenuous or too high of a commitment, just something social that you can look forward to and find that sense of purpose or giving back to your community, for example. Okay, so here's our little case scenario here. I wonder if the videos make the screen turn white after they're done, but anyways. Joe and Kim are friendly with their neighbors, but don't feel the same sense of belonging and community as they did with their friends and family when they all lived in the same city. So they invested in an iPad that they can FaceTime them weekly with. They also decided to join community classes to learn more about using their iPad, and in doing so, have created more connections and people to chat with online. So they kind of took that step to learn a different skill, to find a different way to get connected, and in doing that, they made more connections, more friends. Okay, so here's another tip. There are many free programs and groups available in the community to support seniors in staying connected and staying social. Whether you take a class to learn about social media, like at the Brant Skills Center, for example, or join our upcoming Active Aging Social Club, you're sure to feel more connected to your community. Sometimes it's hard to find out what exactly is going on, but I find that the best way to do it is through word of mouth. So just talking to people about your situation, what you're looking for, and then you end up finding other people saying, oh, you know what? I found this work for me, or there's this going on next week that you might enjoy. And that's how, we share those resources and find things that really end up working for us. Okay, so our next step, step 6. It's not shameful to admit you may need extra help around the house or with daily activities. It is in the best interest of your safety and well-being if you have concerns. The supports and services people may need as they age will vary, as will the costs. Services and supports range from private, out-of-pocket expenses to those offered through healthcare and social service systems, or those free services, publicly funded supports. When developing your plan to age in place, you should understand the supports and services you may need and find out if they're available in your community and think about how much they will cost. A good place to start looking for information is at your local senior center or your health provider. Okay, so here's another case scenario. Elizabeth downsized to an apartment a few years ago after her husband died. She's going in for surgery in a few weeks and is concerned about having extra support around the house. Her kids currently live out of the province, and she doesn't feel comfortable asking her friends to support her in that way. She decides to call home and community care services to learn about what her options are so she can remain in her home safely. Now, in saying this, I know some people have a lot of pride and may not feel comfortable, like Elizabeth in this scenario, telling her friends or family, but I think it's always important to, let a neighbor know, for example, if I'm just coming back from a surgery, are you able to check up on me, or, can we exchange numbers in case of an emergency? I know it can be a little bit uncomfortable sometimes to ask those things, but it really is so important for your own health and safety. Okay, step 7. Thinking of spending money on downsizing, modifying your home, or paying for services or supports as an investment in your health and your future. Ensure that you budget and prioritize your finances based on your own needs. Understanding and planning for future expenses and staying informed about available income sources or supplements will help you maintain your desired standard of living. There are provincial and federal tax credits, as well as income supplements available to eligible seniors. Some of them we touched on earlier. And you may, additionally, many private and public services offer seniors discounts, which you can find on the Grand River Council on Aging websites. Yes, so I just wanted to touch on that. Actually, they offer a seniors discount directory service on their website where you can discover many opportunities for saving in the Brantford area. Okay, so kind of flew through this, but I want to take another little checkpoint here to reflect on what you originally thought about, and now after learning about the different steps or examples, think about your action plan. So how have these examples influenced how you might plan for your future, for aging in place? These examples and steps are things you can do now and in the future to be better prepared for later life. So you can write out a checklist based on the steps outlined, figure out what's most important to you, and go from there. So I just wanted to provide a little conclusion to review what we talked about in the last 30 minutes or so. So aging in place, like we said at the very beginning, it's more than just staying in your home, staying in one place as you age. It's about safety. I know a lot of people, as they age, they get very comfortable. They don't want to move, but it's important to start considering the various options and being open-minded and keeping your safety a priority. So what is the best option for your safety, your independence? What's the way that you can age optimally?
Michelle, excuse me, just a reminder, this is your 2-minute.
Okay, thank you. Perfect, thank you. Okay, we'll zoom through these. So aging in place is a privilege. As we talked about, not everyone has that opportunity. There are various dimensions of your health that you should consider. You want to assess your current living situation, transportation available to you, social supports, and the services that you may end up needing, and create that budget and see it as an investment to your well-being. Right on the buzzer. So I want to thank you so much for this opportunity. Here's some of my contact information if you want to go ahead and write that down. If you have anything you want to follow up with after the presentation. Otherwise, thank you so much for paying attention and participating. It was an honor.